So in this question, it actually stumped me for a little bit. So it is a bit difficult, but it takes a bit of understanding. So you have the mass, which is 62 kgs, and you also have the horizontal velocity the snowboarder is sort of going at, which is 8.1 meters per second. And then lastly, you have that dip, which is 3.7 meters vertically down. And so to solve this question, firstly, we need to figure out the velocity that the snowboarder goes after sort of falling down that vertical dip. And so actually I'll draw a little diagram here. And so let's say this is 3.7 meters. We have the snowboarder over here, and she's initially traveling at 8.1 meters per second, but as the snowboarder falls down the cliff or whatever it may seem, this 8.1 meters per second, if you remember from projectile motion, stays the same. However, the snowboarder is now going to experience a vertical velocity. So we need to find that vertical velocity. And so how are we going to do that? Well, to do that, what we're going to do is we are first going to find the gravitational potential energy at this specific point, right when the vertical velocity is equal to 0. And then we know that once the snowboarder falls all the way down here, all of that will then turn into kinetic energy. And obviously the question does say to ignore air resistance, so we know the energy is conserved. So we know that the gravitational potential energy decreases from the instant she doesn't have a normal force. She's going to experience a downwards force. So the gravitational potential energy decreases and the kinetic energy increases. And so we're going to write that as like so. And then we could write it like this, which is equal to, sorry, not equal to yet. We're going to bring this to the other side. Cross out the mass. So we're left with 0.5 velocity squared into 9.8 and the height, which is 3.7. So we're going to punch that into our calculator. 9.8 times 3.7. That gives us we're going to divide both sides by 0.5. Like so. Last but not least, square root each side, which gives us 8.5. We'll just say 8.5. Now, it's important to remember that this velocity we just found is the vertical velocity. And so what that means is right when this snowboarder is just about hit the ground, the maximum vertical velocity that this person will have is 8.5 meters per second. However, that's not the answer. We need to do one final step before finding the answer, and that is to find the resultant velocity. How do we do that? We need to make It's like we're going back to kinematics. We need to make a vector diagram. And so we know that we have the y velocity that way. We also have the horizontal velocity acting horizontally. And so what we need to do is we need to find the resultant. And that is the hypotenuse. And we're going to call that the final velocity. So how do we find final velocity? Well, that is the Pythagorean theorem. Like so. And then we can simply plug in what we know. Over here, 8.1. And we know the final velocity. Well, actually, we don't know the final velocity. So we're going to have to find that. We're going to have 8.5 squared plus 8.1 squared, 137.86 final velocity squared, and then root both sides. That gives you a velocity of 11.74. And we're round to two significant digits. Therefore, the resultant velocity is 12 meters per second. So that is how we solve a question like